Mark. And so Bertrand is going to talk to you about zero-click SEO. You had zero-click marketing this morning with Amanda, and now we'll focus on SEO. From what I saw, he'll explain to you how everything works so that you can set up the perfect framework for AI search optimization. Kind of difficult to say. And so, as usual, keep your comments polite in the chat. Please respect each other and your speaker. And as usual, again, you may ask your questions in the chat as the conference goes on. Dale will answer your questions at the end of the session. And to answer your main question right away, yes, there will be a replay of this conference later. And so now, Dale, you may come up here and enjoy your conference.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Yeah, so if you can hear me, see me, then we are ready to go. I want to add the slides to the screen. There we go. All you have to do is click on it and they come up. So I'm Dale. We're talking about zero-click SEO. Zero-click SEO is a thing in part because of generative AI. We all know that our customers are using generative AI platforms to find our products, and we know that Google is changing. Google has introduced AI mode and AI overviews, especially in the US. They will be coming to the rest of the world. I know that the support is different in different countries, but I know that it is coming. I'm gonna dive quickly into it because I've got a lot to share. First of all, here, my name is Dale. I have a technical background. I studied engineering. I was a software guy. I studied AI in grad school. That's how I got into SEO. And that's why I've been doing a ton with AI for digital marketing. And we started before ChatGPT at our agency. I run Fire and Spark. Fire and Spark is an SEO agency. We only do SEO. So we don't pretend to be world-class at anything other than SEO. And we have a bunch of clients, and our clients have logos. So I wanted to talk about search engines because search engines are changing. So the way that we as marketers need to optimize for search engines needs to change. That's super important. So there are different types of engines. So we have these ranking engines, which is traditional Google. They'll give you a list of links with a bunch of ads and some other features like maps. Then there are training-based LLMs. You think of this as like OpenAI's GPT-4, their GPT series. These are, the question and answer engines, conversational engines, but the answers they give you are based on their training. They're not going out on the web to find up-to-date information. It's just whatever was in its training data set. Then there are hybrid search engines. These are rankings plus LLMs. This is something like Google's AI overviews or AI mode or Perplexity or ChatGPT. They're doing ranking and they're using large language models to generate summaries of the information it finds and to give you information from its training. So it's important to realize that the ranking engines are different from these training-based LLMs, and it's important to realize that the search engines that our customers will be using, like AI overviews in Google and Perplexity, they're really a combination of both, even though they work differently. So I want to get into one very important concept, which is you could imagine if you're searching for sales CRM for contractors, the old way that search engines used to work is they would look for these words on pages. They might find a page like the page on the left, which is a title, sales CRM, and they write about contractors. So this is a lexical search engine. This is finding keywords on pages. Search engines don't work this way anymore. Nowadays, they are semantic search engines. What a search engine will do is understand the intent. What are you really looking for when you type in something like sales CRM for contractors? Then it'll look for a page, maybe something with the title lead tracker, and it doesn't have contractors on the page, it has builders, because builder is similar to contractor. But the lead tracker page is semantically similar, it's semantically relevant, even though it doesn't have the keywords on it. A lot of people don't understand that search engines are no longer doing keyword search, even though we're all still optimizing for keywords, which is kind of crazy. And the way that search engines, modern search engines, do semantic search nowadays is with vector embeddings. And I'm going to explain that in a second, and that's as technical as we need to get. But this is a picture of the library in my town. This is where I live, Milton, Massachusetts. This is the Milton Library. If you were to go inside the library, they still have their old card catalog. And if you're old like me, you remember the card catalog. It was before you had a computer that could help you find a book. You would pull out the drawer that says cooking books or cookbooks, and then you would find the card for the book that you want, and it would tell you where it is. In this case, it's on the third floor in room 12 on shelf 6A. So if you were to go to that room, that cookbooks room, you could imagine that all of the books that are similar, because they're all cookbooks, and even better, they're all French cookbooks, they would all be on the same shelf. They would be near each other because they have the same topic. Now, if I went to compare a cookbook like this French cookbook with a children's book, maybe Wizard of Oz or something like that, those two books are very different topics, very different semantically. So they're going to be far apart. They're just not on the same shelf, not in the same room, maybe even not on the same floor in the library. Now, this concept is important. It's important because this is the way that vector embeddings work. What search engines are doing is they're calculating a vector, which is a location of in a space that we can't see because it has a lot more dimensions than the physical space that we occupy. But they're basically calculating a location for all the pages on your website, and they're doing the same thing, calculating this vector embedding location for the query, and then they're just basically matching like which of the documents on your website are close to the query. And that is a semantic search. It's not looking for the keywords on the page. It's looking for pages that are semantically relevant to the query using vector embeddings. Now, when you dive into it, and we do not need to get technical, what the vector embeddings are really doing is they're taking sections of your page, not the whole page, so different passages. They're calculating a vector, which is a bunch of numbers, and then they're using that to measure how similar it is to the query. Now, you can imagine that the way that what Google's also doing is they're calculating vectors not just for passages and not just for your pages, but they can calculate a vector for an image or audio or video, because even though it's a different type of content, it still has meaning. So that when somebody's searching for a French cookbook, maybe the podcast audio, without them having to transcribe it at all, maybe the vector embedding for that audio is also close to the search query. Now, another thing that they're doing is they're personalizing results. So what this is you can imagine Google taking a look at you and your search history and what's in your email and everything that Google knows about you, and calculating a vector embedding. So basically, when it's looking for information, not only is it looking for information that is similar and relevant to your query, but it's relevant to you. So I'm a programmer. So if I'm looking for information about programming languages or something, I would expect Google to give me advanced information, because that would be more similar to the vector embedding for Dale. But if my wife or my mother was searching for programming information, they would get very basic programming advice, because that would be more similar to the vector embedding for them. And I hope that all makes sense. So Google is basically calculating a vector embedding for everything about you, your emails, what you do for a living, what you search for, search history, do you have a family, like all of that good stuff, so that not only are the results relevant to your query, but they're also relevant to you. So now that we all understand that keyword search is not a thing anymore, I just want to say that out loud. You kind of wonder, like, how come SEO tools aren't keeping up? Like, they're not keeping up because they're still helping us to do keyword research, which isn't really relevant. Like, what you want instead is to write content that's relevant to your customers and what they're looking for. And then also keyword tools are calculating things like domain authority, which is totally made up. Now, in order to understand the direction that Google's going with their AI overviews and their AI mode, which is their conversational response to ChatGPT, I think you just look right at Google's website. They have a page that talks about the mission behind their company. And Google's mission is to organize the world's information and make it universally acceptable and useful. Nowhere in here does it say that Google's mission is to send your website traffic. They don't care about your brand or your traffic or your sales or your conversions or anything like that. They're going to give information to your customers when they need it. And if your customers don't need to go to your website, that's okay. So it's really important to keep that in mind. Now, looking at Google and what they are doing, what they're up to, like their latest is really AI mode. And if you haven't used AI mode, it's different from AI overviews. AI overviews is a direct answer to a searcher's question that just sits at the top of the page, kind of like a featured snippet. But AI mode is different, where if you do a search, and here's a search that I did, I basically said Boston restaurants with goat cheese pizza. And if you click on the AI mode button here up to the left, it'll bring you into a chat interface that looks just like ChatGPT, where you can just keep asking follow-up questions, just like ChatGPT. So I asked it a whole bunch of questions. I said, which of these pizza restaurants would be best for date night? Or which restaurant offers reservations on OpenTable, which is an app that I use in the US? And then what about parking? Like, where would I park? So this is AI mode. And I expect that AI mode, at least in the US, is going to take over Google. It's going to be the default Google experience by the end of the year. That's what I believe in the US. That's why I'm optimizing for AI mode starting now. So it's important to understand the way AI mode works. And then I'll show you exactly what we're doing to optimize for AI mode and other AI search platforms. Now, there's a lot going on with the way AI mode works, and I'm going to give like a simple explanation here in 6 different parts. But the first thing it's doing is understanding the query. It's looking at what they typed in and trying to understand what are they really looking for. What is the intent? And Google is using its own generative AI to classify the query and figure out what type of output the user wants. Do they want a map? Do they want a comparison? Do they want a direct answer? Do they want a product page where they could buy something? That's really important. Then second thing the AI mode is doing when people are searching in Google in the AI mode is it's doing query fan out. Now, this is what it's doing is it's generating additional queries that are related to the initial query. So if I'm searching for restaurants in Boston that have goat cheese pizza, it'll make a whole list of 100 different queries that are similar but not the same. So variants on that query, like best goat cheese pizza for families, or restaurants in Boston with goat cheese pizza with parking, like all of that based on what it knows about me. And it'll find a whole bunch of pages based on the queries that it generated that are variants of the original query. Then it does reasoning. Now, reasoning, it's generating reasoning chains, and this should make sense. Like if Google knows that I'm looking for a restaurant in Boston, the type of reasoning chain it might put together is something like Dale would like to know which pizza restaurants are close to him in Boston. Then he would like to know which ones have goat cheese pizza on the menu. Then he would like to know which ones are reasonably priced. Then he would like to know which ones are good for a family. Then he would like to know about parking. So it's putting together this reasoning chain. And the reason why it's doing that is so that it could find information for each of these steps in the reasoning chain and consolidate that into a very helpful answer. Then context understanding. This is adding additional context, like, for example, the personalization. Remember, I told you that Google's using everything it knows about you, like your history and where you live and the fact that you have a family. So it's adding more context, and it'll find more information that is relevant to that context. Then content selection. Here, it's choosing different passages, not just pages, but different passages on the web that are relevant to you, because from like the personalization vector, also that are relevant to the reasoning chain, also that are relevant to the queries when it generated the fan out queries, because it's just putting in a whole lot of information so that when it gets to the end of this process and it's generating a response, it has the information that it needs to fill out the reasoning chain with relevant information and generate the type of response that it thinks you want based on the query, which might be a map, it might be a comparison, it might be a direct answer. So this is how AI mode works, and then it just keeps going in conversation as you keep responding and asking follow-up questions and all of that good stuff. So now that you understand how AI mode works, and you understand that AI mode is quite different from a ranking engine, because what AI mode is doing is it's creating a generative response based on a whole lot of context. What it knows about you personally, information it found on the web, the query that you typed in, and information that's relevant to it, and then also whatever's relevant to the reasoning chain it generated and the query fan out queries that it generated. Like it's generating in the answer or the next turn in the conversation based on all of that. That is not a ranking engine. That is not query response. That is a conversation, and each turn of the conversation is a generative response to what you just typed in. So this requires a different way of optimizing. I have a framework, I call it the vector framework, and definitely reach out to me to get the slides here. I'll give you my info. And the reason why I'm saying this is because there's a lot to this framework, because at the end of the day, what you want to do is to optimize for each of the different stages of the AI search that I just showed you in the last slide. And I put my email in here, dale@fireandspark.com. I'll give you the full framework. But what this framework does is it helps you to identify the intents that you should be optimizing for. These are the things that your customers are looking for. Then to expand relevance is all about making sure that the content you're creating is relevant to many different aspects of the topic and the queries that you're targeting, because we need to target the query fan out. And then clarifying your answers so that you have semantically dense answers with the entities or the products that you want to be talking about, and making sure that AI can find those specific answers. And then targeting mentions is all about digital PR so that your brand and your products appear online with the concepts that you want them to appear online more frequently. So that could be like Nike showing up online for sneakers. Like you want the AI to see that in its training data set as much as possible. And we're using digital PR for that. And then optimizing for assembly, that's about structuring your content so that you have call out boxes and comparisons and the types of semantically dense, self-contained, modular answers, direct answers to the intents that you're targeting. And refreshing passages is about making sure that the AI and Google can see that your content is fresh, that you've got up-to-date information, which because it will favor up-to-date information. Now, I'm not going to go into all 6 steps of the vector framework in detail, but I am going to jump ahead and talk about the E in the framework, which is the second step, that is expanding relevance. And I'm going to give some examples here. Like the reason why we're focused on this step is because of the way AI mode works. Like it uses the dense vector embeddings that I talked about to measure similarity, and it's looking at the keyword to understand what they're actually searching for. And then it's retrieving content in various different ways that I talked about across different query variations. That's the query fan down. So what we're doing is we're basically using prompts like this. This is a prompt that I grabbed from my friend Andy Crestodina. He's got an awesome newsletter, so definitely take a look at that. But if you have a piece of content or a page on your website, what you're telling AI to help you with here is to brainstorm 10 phrases that are related to the search intent that you're targeting. And it might be something like find discount ski equipment at the end of the ski season. And then suggest edits to 10 sentences on this page that would add new relevant sentences. So what you're doing is you're telling AI to generate some content that it will inject into the content on the page that will make it more relevant to this search intent. And if this is one of the search intents that you're targeting, then this is one technique that will add relevance. And this is the easiest way to do it to the content that you already have on your website or the content that you're developing. Now, here I have just one example. We have a client that's focused on incontinence and bladder control. So this prompt is suggesting a sentence to be added, or actually this sentence to be updated to add more relevance to that specific search intent. And that's what the AI search engines are looking for using their internal tool of vector embeddings. Now, if you want to grab my slides, because I have a lot more here, and I'm skipping slides here because I don't have time to go over the entire framework. You can use this QR code or just email me directly, dale@fireandspark.com. I want to make sure that everybody has my slides and the worksheets that go along with this. Now, another one of the steps of this vector framework that I am going to cover is the C, which is clarifying your answers. What this is about is that making sure that when you're creating content, you have modular standalone sections in your content. Imagine an article or a marketing page that has headers with paragraphs after them, and you want one or two paragraphs that answer a specific question. And ideally, they would answer that question in the first sentence of the first paragraph. And then they would have dense, to the point information in the next like one or two paragraphs that really answer a specific question related to the search intent that you are targeting. We call this modular standalone content. This is what AI is looking for, to cite your content and use your content in the answers that it is generating. I'm going to give an example here because I got some examples. Like this is a call out box, related to what is crawlability, and you've got a dense 3-sentence answer that is like perfect and bite-sized and modular, and you can imagine writing a page with a bunch of different information about SEO crawlers or something like that. And then also like pros and cons section on your page. Or in your article. And once again, this is nice and dense, especially as it relates to specific products that might come up in conversation when your customers are talking to an AI chatbot. And then another type of content. So this content works well because it talks about two products, which we would call entities, which is the Tesla Model 3 and then also the Ford Mustang Mach-E. So they're both cars. And the information in here is very specific comparison with numbers and dense information that AI would love to like pull some information from when it's trying to compare, or when it's in conversation trying to compare these two products. So the second sentence in here says, the Tesla offers longer EPA range at 341 miles versus the 290 miles for the Ford Mustang. Faster charging and quicker acceleration. And it says 0 to 60 in 4.2 seconds. So this is nice, dense, useful information with some numbers and facts that AI can grab and then cite your content and your brand rather than somebody else's. Now, I'm skipping over a few sections of this of my framework here, but getting to the T in my framework, which this is the part of the framework that is about digital PR. Now, remember, when AI is trained, we want to make sure that our product, our brand, our services is mentioned. So the first part of this is we have to be mentioned in the right places, the places we know that AI is looking. And AI is looking at a lot of different websites, but it really does prefer Reddit or Wikipedia or other trusted sources online. And then in addition to that, we want to make sure that our brand appears often. That's why this is a PR exercise at the end of the day. So what we're doing is we're establishing presence with co-citations. I'm going to show you that on the next slide. And we're improving our visibility with frequency of our brand and our products in the AI training set. And then we're reinforcing semantic relevance by making sure that we're creating content that is super relevant to the search intents in our searchers. Now, here's an example. Like what I'm going to show you is a review on an Amazon page for an iPhone. So imagine I go to Amazon, I'm looking at the iPhone 16 and I pull up a review. And what the review says is Apple Intelligence is underwhelming compared to other AI assistants. ChatGPT voice is impressive compared to this crap. Now, when AI finds this review during its training, it's going to find Apple Intelligence, which is an entity, it's a thing, and also ChatGPT voice, which is also an entity, a product. And for Apple Intelligence, it's going to associate it with underwhelming because they appear, it's a co-citation in the training data set. And then for ChatGPT voice, it's going to associate that with impressive because they appear as co-citations in the training data set. This is the sort of thing that you want the sentiment to be positive. If you run Nike, you want Nike to be associated with sneakers and winning, and you want that as much as possible in the training data set so that AI makes the same associations. So that when AI is having a conversation, like the way to think about AI search is like, imagine if you got engaged over dinner. The next day after you get engaged, you're going to go to work and tell all your friends you just got engaged. When you get engaged, they're going to give you advice whether you ask for it or not. Your friends are going to start telling you things about where you should get married, how you should deal with your parents-in-law, how to have a good marriage. Like, you're getting that information even though you didn't ask for it. That is the fundamental difference between chat search on an AI platform and traditional Google search. Traditional Google search is question, answer, query, response. But for AI platforms, like these conversational platforms, you want your brand to come up in conversation, whether your potential customer is asking for it or not. Just like the random advice that you're going to get when you tell your friends that you got engaged last night. Now, in order to do this PR well, you really want to manage your brand reputation, build relationships with influencers online, create thought leadership content to get your brand out there, the right sentiment, the right ideas, the right messaging. You have control over your thought leadership content. That's important. You have control over that messaging. Thus, you have control over what the AI sees during its training. And then expand your digital footprint. You want your messaging to be consistent and appear often online. That is important. Now, last step of this I'm going to talk about is the O, which is optimizing for assembly. So what this is about is making sure that the content that you're creating, AI mode will select and recombine sections of pages, not entire pages, that it finds online, and you want to choose yours. If you are creating this modular content that I talked about that is semantically dense and is relevant to the searches that your customers are making because you're doing the right customer research, then you want to assemble it in a way where it's logically structured, the modular, semantically dense content pieces flow in a logical way. You have headings that tell AI what it's about, basically what questions the next section answers. You have metadata and schema, and then you're also adding lists and tables and all that good stuff. But this structure really matters, and we're doing things like adding table of contents and summaries and Q&A and call out boxes. And then we're working with sites that might have modular content. And like this is an example of a page that is a comparison of insurance companies here in the US, and it's got all of these different elements on it with logical headers. Some of the headers are questions, so it's obvious to the AI what questions the next section answers, and then you want to make sure you have a nice, concise answer in the next section. So that's where we're at. And then I want to cover a couple more things here before I'm done. One is that these are just two different writers that we hired. So one of the writers has an old school writing skill set. So Allie over here on the left, she's really good at pitching ideas, storytelling, writing, editing, proofreading. She's a writer. That's why we hired her. The problem is we need a different writing skill set now, especially for AI platforms, especially when we're updating existing content to basically have more visibility in these AI platforms, like AI overviews and AI mode. We need somebody like Erica, and Erica's not her real name, not her real photo, but we hired her because she's got some background in AI optimization, all the things that I'm talking about today. And I'll train her on that because nobody really knows that stuff nowadays. But she also understands data analysis, and that can be important when you're trying to create unique content and thought leadership content, content that's based on primary research or surveys or interactive tools. And then also she's good at community engagement because we want to build a community around our brand. We want to build an audience so that we're getting traffic and eyeballs that is not intermediated by Google. Like, it also comes directly to our website. That's more like content marketing than it is than it is SEO. So that's more about content marketing than SEO. And then she understands the PR strategy for digital PR, for getting the right messages as frequently as possible into the AI training data set. And then she's also good at crafting calls to action. This is important because we want people to convert when they land on our content. And then last thing I'll talk about is the idea of interactive tools. We really like creating interactive tools for a lot of reasons. We started doing this many years back because interactive tools were awesome for conversion rate optimization. I built one of these on basically one of our clients' websites that was a financial institution, and it was a loan payback calculator, and it doubled their conversion rate. But now with AI, we can create these easily. We don't need a developer anymore. You're really only limited by your creativity. So, and also remember that customers love pricing calculators or price estimators or something like that. So you can create different types of interactive tools. The other thing about interactive tools is this is content that Google's AI cannot summarize. It's shareable, it's content marketing. People need to come to your website in order to use the tool, and they need to give you information to use the tool. So you have some first party data on the people coming to your tool, and you can create them without a developer in AI. It's like a win-win-win-win-win when you're creating these things. So you can create interactive tools that are pricing calculators or needs assessments or configuration tools. It really depends on what you're selling, or a delivery estimator, if that makes sense in your world, or product comparisons. But these can be gold. You can share them on social media. It works well. And then I have some quick examples here. Like, I have my prompts, so you guys can grab this when you grab my slides, or email me, and I can send this to you. But this prompt is to create an HTML page that contains an interactive tool with an intuitive layout and a light blue color scheme. And then you give it the inputs, and it'll like create the tool for you, and then you just paste it on your site. Another one about that is like, how much will college cost? And another one which is like a personal meal plan builder, and another one that's like a campaign brief generator. Like, you can go nuts with these things, and they work. And you don't have to talk to a developer. Now, I want to make sure you guys, this is my email address, dale@fireandspark.com. I do a full day workshop on this vector framework, but I do have the materials from that. So if you're interested in the vector framework playbook, the worksheets, send me an email, dale@fireandspark.com. I will send that to you. And that is it for now. I want to make sure I have a chance to answer people's questions. So is there any difference between Bing and Google? As far as I know, Bing prefers exact keyword match. I can tell you for a fact, because I had dinner with Fabrice Cannell, who runs Bing at Microsoft, and he and I had a long conversation about vector embeddings. It works the same way as Google in terms of semantic search and not lexical keyword search. Lexical keyword search is just not a thing. And it's possible that you'll get pages that have the keywords in the title and the keyword on the page, but that's just not the way the search engine works. So no, it is not different. You definitely should be focused on optimizing for semantic search and not keyword search in 2025. And we have another question here, which is, can keywords be thought of as a new way of organizing content, making it easier for AI to crawl that content? Doesn't AI use keywords from the question asked to crawl the answers? Not really, because if you think about it, like what AI is good at, if you have a page, maybe you wrote an article and you put it on your website, you might assign keywords to it, or you might optimize it with keywords, but AI doesn't need the keywords. AI is all about natural language understanding. And the definition of natural language understanding is that AI understands it by reading it without needing keywords. And AI can do a better job without keywords than if it did use keywords. Keywords are a problem for AI because the keyword could be wrong. The keyword could point it in the wrong direction. AI works well enough now that it will ignore the keywords when it needs to, because keywords can just be a liability. When your customer types a keyword into Google, what Google's doing is calculating a vector. We talked about vector embeddings and trying to figure out what is the real intent. What does this person really want? And then it's generating a response or an answer or rankings that align with what this person is actually looking for, not the keywords, because keywords would give you a worse answer. That's why search engines do not rely strictly on keywords or use them much at all. How do social channels influence LLMs? So this one can be tough. Like the way that I would think about it is if your customers are searching for your type of product or service on a social channel, then absolutely you need to optimize for that social channel. That's the first thing. And that's really where I would start. Understanding what social channels do your customers use, and especially if they're using it to search. Now, that's going to be different for every brand, for every product, because everybody on this call has different customers. Some of our customers are teenagers that are using different tools than my father, who's 79 years old, and he's using very different tools, like just Google and email, basically. But then also, what a part of your question is, are they using social signals like ChatGPT? Are they using social signals or Google to rank content? And for the most part, the answer is no. Like Bing went down this path a long time ago and found that the link structure of the web was a better indicator of the right content than social signals. And the other thing is that the AI platforms that we're all using, like ChatGPT Search and Google's AI Overviews and AI Mode, these search platforms are so new that they just haven't had a chance to mature. Like maybe when they're mature, search. So maybe when these AI platforms mature, 1 or 2 years out, they will add social signals as one of many different types of signals that they look at. But as of now, it's just not a big factor. And it looks like we are running out of time. So definitely, if you have any questions for me, hit me up at my email, dale@fireandspark.com. I'm always happy to take a look at your website and your content, and then give you some advice about how to optimize your website and the content that you're developing and you already have on your website. So hit me up. We can schedule a session like that, or I can just send you my framework for optimization for AI platforms.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Dale. Thanks a lot for this very insightful conference and for all your answers. I think I saw in the chat that your conference was very well liked. So that's really cool to know. So this closes the session, and it's time for a quick break before the second conference of the afternoon. Don't forget, and I'm putting it right here,